Right.
As soon as what?
Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and those listening to Central Praise Radio, wherever you may find yourself. We are happy that you have decided to listen in and to participate by questioning some of what we say, if not all, and questioning yourself in terms of where you stand with respect to this line of discussion. 2 weeks ago, and we're here every 2 weeks, we began a discussion on whether and to what extent religion in general, Christianity in particular, has justified its existence. And we made a number of points, if you wish. This evening, we are here to continue and perhaps conclude that discussion with the absence of one of our panelists who was here last time, another member of the council, Dwight Berridge. So tonight, you have myself, your humble servant, Michael Blake, and my partner in the discussion, former president of the council, Melvin Agard.
Greetings, people.
So we want to continue with a few more pointers with respect to this matter. And I really am disappointed that to date we cannot have a live interactive exchange of points of view with respect to this matter. Because I believe that religion has done more harm than good. I believe that spirituality, I believe that righteousness have done and can only do more good than harm. But I believe that religion, as constituted and as practiced, has inflicted far more hurt and harm than the good that it has engendered. And I can present you with facts and figures to support that claim, by the way. Those of you who know me, you know that I am not the type, like some politicians and many other persons, who just pout rhetoric and say things without being able to defend them. And so I can present you with stats and facts, if you wish, to justify that claim that religion has not justified its existence, that religion has done more harm than good. Because one only has to think of the past and of the present, right? When we think of in the days of yore, when the Crusades were initiated, when the Spanish Inquisition was at its height, when killing quote-unquote heretics and infidels was a so-called divine instruction, and they went about it with glee. When we think about the current times now, the Muslims, they believe that if one does not subscribe to the view that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his servant, Muhammad the Prophet, you are fit for destruction. And so we find Sunni Muslims against Shiite. We find all of them against any other form of religion, particularly Christians, because they see the central figure in Christianity, Jesus Christ, as competing with and perhaps supplanting Muhammad. So they are against the laws of the country, those Arab countries, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia. The law expressly forbids proselytizing. A Christian-minded person, a so-called preacher of Christianity, cannot go to Saudi Arabia and attempt to preach the gospel. As good as he was, Billy Graham did not do something like that when he was in his head, because it is not allowed. And in some countries, even to do so, you're under the sentence of death. Religion. Now, which God would want to see people destroyed like that? And some would argue that that's the God of the Old Testament in particular, as it is portrayed, right? Where persons were destined for death at the slightest transgression. Point is, religion. In the name of religion, a lot of inhumanity, man's inhumanity to man is expressed in the name of religion. The exploitation of man by man is executed in the name of religion And we can think of slavery, of course, which for a very long time had the blessing and support of established religious institutions. And I would like to emphasize this evening that we need to divorce being religious from being righteous and from being spiritual. Because I want to make the point, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to hush in a while for Borega to intervene, that there are lots of persons who are religious, but they are brutal and vicious and nasty. Some of these, I'm going to say it now, some of the pastors in our churches here in St. Kitts and Nevis today are among the most vile and vicious, are among the most venal and corrupt. Tell them I say so. And if they're guilty, who the catfish, let them hear it. They are religious personalities in our society who hide behind that cloak of religion to inflict some very nasty acts. I mean, how many of us, which one of us have not heard of what's happening in the Catholic Church, where these priests seem to delight in sodomizing boys, in homosexualizing boys, as my brother used to say, in bottomizing boys. How many of us haven't heard of that? I mean, come on now. All right? So they say they're celibate. They practice celibacy, meaning they're not supposed to be involved in sexual relations with a woman, a person of the opposite sex with a woman, the way I do and the way God does, or we are supposed to, as men are supposed to. But no, they want to do that. Not only with persons of the same sex, which is an abomination, but with little boys. But what can be filtered in that? In the name of religion. They're religious people, but they can't be righteous. They're very, very unrighteous. They're very unspiritual people. At the same time, there are many persons who practice no religion. They are irreligious people. And they're very spiritual in their approach and behavior. They're compassionate, they're kind, they're honest, they're hardworking, they're generous. They will never subscribe to some of the corrupt practices that we see existing in many of our churches and many of our Muslim temples and Jewish synagogues and Hindu temples and so on. Muslim mosques and all of that. But these are people who don't go to church. So I want us to understand that when someone says he's religious, when someone comes across as being the head of a religious organization, that does not mean that that person is upright in thought or behavior. I come back.
Yeah, well said, Blake. So I just want to go back a little bit in history because, as some had said before, when people don't acknowledge the history or know the history, they're bound to repeat the issues that they face before, and they just constantly go over it. And some people seem to hate the black history and what's not. But I don't remember if it's in primary school I learned this, Blake, so you could help me out. But I remember learning in primary school, and in grade 6 to be more specific, that when our ancestors were in bondage, that they were sometimes in rooms below the church, and they would probably hear what's going on upstairs, and that went on for quite a few years. Well, and then later on they were able to come up and sit in the back seats. So I don't remember if that teaching happened in grade 6 or in first form.
But those were the days when Columbus ruled. In other words, when teachers would emphasize Columbus and his discovery, and how all of that led to slavery and how slaves were treated. Of course, it started off with slaves being confined to the worst dungeons and the dirtiest rooms. And after the amelioration proposals, these things only happened after the amelioration proposals in 1823. By the way, James Stephen, for whom Stephen's name, had working with the Clapham sect, working with people like Wilberforce and Sharp and so on, and Clarkson. They lobbied the British government to lessen the most egregious effects of slavery, if not by abolishing it, by introducing some amelioration is another word for improvement. So these proposals were designed to improve the lot of the slaves. before they were totally free. And so after the amelioration proposals, that is when churches were mandated to allow slaves to come in, but they were of course positioned at the back. And that still continues today, 2026 in some cases, in some countries, in some churches. And also slaves are now, after the amelioration proposals, planters were obliged to document the number of strokes that a slave got, and they were limited in the amount or in the number that they could now inflict on slaves, because once upon a time they could beat you to death, right? So the number of strokes were limited. So they were supposed to be given time off to attend church services, and they were supposed to be given small plots of lands. Families were not to be, the slave trade had ended in 1807, but families were no longer to be deliberately divided. The children were supposed to be given less harsh treatment, all of that.
Right.
The amelioration proposals of
Right.
1823. And I find that we don't speak of that enough. We talk about the abolition of the slave trade in 1807, and we had a big thing here in 2007. UNESCO had organized a big celebration, 200 years of the abolition of the slave trade. We're looking forward to 2034. That's what, 8 years from now, when we celebrate the end of slavery. I imagine that's going to be a big thing. 200 years,
Okay.
so-called, of the end of slavery, so-called.
Yeah.
But carry on. Yeah, so that would have been after the amelioration proposals, when the slaves were
Right.
backseated.
Right. So I realize some people that have been in conversation with don't seem to remember that teaching in school. But I remember learning most of that in school.
Yes.
So I don't know if that was not really part of the curriculum and the teacher was just telling us these things.
Well,
Because they
you
don't-
did have some teachers like me who would go beyond the curriculum
and tell these
yeah,
things.
yeah.
So maybe that's the thing, because when I ask a few persons who, around my age group, they don't seem to remember this.
Right.
So
Might not have been the norm.
So, but yeah, I mean, so when you look at what religion itself has brought to the table, because it was systematically used or weaponized by the colonial powers at some point, you find that even having persons there for whatever amount of years listening in dungeons as to what's happening upstairs, and then they were able to sit in back seats and so on. But when you look at all of that, and then in 1507, you say it was
1807.
1807, sorry. When the colonial powers like walk away, because they had already conditioned the people in a kind of mindset like, this is what the religion is.
Of course, because remember slavery started in the 1600s.
Right.
Yeah.
So now our ancestors now gone to the pulpit and take control of a system that was weaponized to keep them docile and other things and so on,
They perpetuated
and
it.
and basically fed that to their children until now.
Right.
It is still being fed.
Generation after generation.
Right. Still feeding our people with this docile concept of religion and all kind of different things and so
Very
on.
important point. Thank you.
So you find that over all these years, adopting this religious order that one was not promoted by our own ancestors, but by the colonial powers, and then a religious system and a political system that was handed down from the colonial powers, we still have that today with us. So we still have the political system, which divide people into groups, categories, and what's not. And then we have the religious system that did the same thing. So now, when the missionaries would have heard that there's a little freedom from 1807, 1815, and so on, they start flooding the shores of the Caribbean islands, bringing Jehovah's Witness and the Adventists, this
Moravian,
Baptist, Moravian, and all these different missionaries come out here. But let me just reverse a little bit though. Before some of these missionaries came out here with that divisive and division concept, people used to live more community and family oriented. You find that the community then used to literally raise the children. The community was, in that day, the moral compass was, you could say, more engaged in the sense that when people even approach the whole religious concept, the women at least were better covered, better dressed, in my opinion. Some people think now that once you are covered as a female, that you look old and all these different things. But one of the things also that happen is in some countries like today, like I think they say it's very popular in Jamaica, where the black woman bleach their skin to look more like the colonial master.
Why?
Man perm them here to look like the colonial master. And then
Michael
the,
Jackson.
the shaving. Mind you, the Bible, the principle of the Bible is that ones and ones shouldn't bald their head or bald their face, as to speak of it. And that was a name. There was a name in the, I think in the Roman Empire, they call it the micey face timing, where the Roman priests and them, because once you dial back the history, the priests them, once they following the what we now dub as Christianity, the beard was very, very significant to mark you as a follower of that particular religion.
Right.
The Egyptians, on the other hand, didn't like it. So the Egyptians were always bald headed and bald faced, and they would have put these things upon their head sometimes today, as you see, like weave and different things and so on. But the Abraham children who went on as the Israelites from Jacob and so on, they were marked by the beard, the tassels, the way they look and so on, and they were marked as that people. And that went on till right now. Even if you look, you go and you search a book now that have on any Bible stories, you still see the characters carry themselves. They are drawn that way. And the religious community accept it that way, that this is how the characters look. However, the pastors are not adapting that.
Exactly.
The pastors don't want to look like the characters that the Bible would have had and instructed them
To do.
not to do a certain thing, not to look a certain way. But yet there's this so-called religious thing that has been forged on the same Bible that they claim, but yet the principles that exist in the Bible, the instructions that exist in the Bible, are not being promoted by how they look, how they conversate with each other, how they interact and so on.
But I gotta think about this. Last week we spoke about a couple of instances where the Bible, what the Bible says and what is practiced today, they
Right.
cannot be reconciled.
Right.
But here's another one. Have you ever seen a picture in a church of, well, you don't find any with Jesus Christ as any other race except Caucasian.
Mm.
So he's drawn as a white man
Yeah.
with long hair.
Yeah.
But Jesus the Christ himself said in the same Bible, doesn't nature itself teach you that it's a shame for man to have long hair?
Yeah, that was Paul actually.
It was Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So here we have it in the Bible that it is a shame for man to have long hair.
Mm.
Why do these churches still have big pictures of Jesus Christ with hair longer than a woman? Hair longer than that of all of my 9 sisters.
It come back down to the
I mean, what is that?
the same mental conditioning that went on.
How could that be?
Wait, you're talking about it here, but
No, because you mentioned it.
let's say you go in somebody's home right now, and you know a lot of these persons who say they are Christian, they would have up an image of Jesus looking
Mhm.
white.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go in there now and take down that white image and put up a black one, you're in them in trouble.
Big time. They call police. they call police. You.
Mind you, and the thing is, the very white race have concluded that the Messiah had to be black. There was a couple of documentaries over the years. I saw one on Discovery, and they went right back to bring DNA and all kind of things in place. And when they bring the conclusion, they're showing you that the Messiah was indeed the timing, the place, the culture, and
The
everything
geography and all of that.
show that he was
Had to
indeed had to be black.
Yeah.
Yet black people do not want the Messiah to be black. It's very strange.
So we're speaking here clearly of the need for the process of emancipation, mental emancipation.
Mental, yes.
But wait a minute, how long is it going to take before we get there? Because this wasn't supposed to have started right after slavery, the process of mental emancipation.
Remember,
When is it going to conclude?
remember
We will never get there.
in the Willie Lynch letters, it was said that once you, however they were dealing with our ancestors then, it will take at least 300 years to erase that.
Well,
And we are not 300 years away from it.
we are 14 too.
Because You say we were freed up in the 18 something,
Yeah,
right?
it said it was abolished in 1934 in the British
Right.
West Indies.
So we might be closing in on
On
like
200 years.
200 years,
Yeah.
right? So which means we still got next 100 years for this to
No,
leak
but
away.
at least 100 years.
At
you're saying.
least, yeah. So which means we're nowhere close.
Why did it take you so long? Are we supposed to be so smart? We're supposed to be so bright? We're supposed to have
We're
more
not.
degrees than a thermometer? We're supposed to be brighter than the sun? So why did it take you so long? Why did it take 300 years?
Well, remember when the division, because everything is systematic and, you know, we see it play out in our society, but we don't take up the mantle to try to fix anything. So you find when those missionaries that I was talking about earlier, when they established themselves in the Caribbean and so on, and the division became so out of order, where now, because you know a Jehovah Witness,
Yeah, of course.
and me just go Roman, you can't come to the
Right.
church.
So
You
that
can't
thing
even
that-
come in your yard and them kind
Right,
of thing.
kind of thing. Yeah.
That wasn't so before. So if missionaries could come and divide our black skinned people like that and pit them against each other through religion, pit them against each other through politics.
Pit us again. I'm going to say us. Yeah.
Okay, pit us, you're right.
Yeah.
The correction, because it's still us.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
Pit us against each other. Through
And we
religion.
recognize it.
We
And
do recognize
we
it.
know it. And we still like that.
Then
So what's that?
It begged me to ask you as an educator, does that mean we're not intelligent?
Why, they say there's a school of thought that says that if students haven't learned, then teachers haven't taught.
Mm.
So I'm wondering if can we really describe ourselves as intelligent if we are not putting that intelligence to use?
Right.
In other words, by really accelerating
Mhm.
the process of mental emancipation. The question is really, has it started? Has it even started?
Well, from
Has it
doing
really
some-
started?
from doing
Except for
some-
among a few people?
from doing a little research, there's some readouts showing that a couple of kickbacks maybe from like the Rastafarian community, some black conscious movements and so on,
Yeah.
who have tried to fight back,
Mhm.
were still kind of suppressed by the same society and the
But-
same politics and so on, would have held them back. And nowadays, the Rasta movement has gotten a little loose, kind of. They're not as tight knit as they used
Well,
to.
even there are divisions even amongst the guys.
Exactly, divisions now creep in.
Yeah.
So because the divisions has crept in, you find that society is a little more tolerant, because the division has kind of weakened the thrust
Right. Yeah.
of fixing that.
But have you ever heard of divisions in the Ku Klux Klan? Where some are saying, hey, let's be nice to these people. And some are saying, let's be less. Let's don't hang 10, let's only hang 5. I've never heard of that. That these white racist bloodsuckers can stay together.
Mm.
But we as black people and all black conscious groups, even within those, they're already small and tiny.
Yeah.
In terms of when juxtaposed against the larger population. And we still have division. What's going on?
But if we reach to the point of self-mutilation, bleaching, and
Mm-hmm.
doing all kind of things with ourselves so that we could look like the colonial master,
Including people like Michael Jackson, who was already
that's a sad case.
self-made, who was supposed to be a leader,
Yeah.
who was looked up to, who was
Yeah.
adored, who was
Model,
idolized.
icon.
Man, eh.
And then so you find that our people today still, I mean, we say about 100 years left to do that, but because there's no real movement in place yet. It might even take longer, because while what we're doing now is that we're now becoming dumbed down by the technology,
Yeah.
because the technology now is offering us all sorts of different things instead of the focus on that mental emancipation that you mentioned. So instead of being emancipated now, our own black people now are out there coming with all kind of different concepts and isms and schisms.
Which perpetuates the lack of emancipation or slows down the process.
Exactly.
Like I said, I sometimes feel I waited 40 years in the as trying to lead people in the right direction, because I remember a couple of times when I was a junior teacher. I remember one specific instance when I was teaching history at Bassey High School, 43. And instead of following the curriculum, I say, hey, to hell with that, I'm going to talk about apartheid. Apartheid was still was still the name of the game in South Africa. It was in
Right.
the late 1980s and mid 1980s. And the deputy principal, a woman, passed across. And you know, I speak with a certain kind of in a certain kind of voice.
Yeah.
So she heard me. And after she passed, she stepped right back, called me out. I'm a young man, eh?
Mhm.
And said, no. He told me, no, don't continue along that line. Follow the curriculum, follow the syllabus. What you doing? You can't be talking about it's supposed to be acquisition black woman, you know.
Right.
You cannot be talking to the students about that thing. That is not a part. They won't be tested on that. That is not in GCE, because the students are doing GCE at the time. That is not going to be tested on that either at promotion level or GCE level. So come on, Mr. Blake, don't do that and so on. But the man, I can't forget that.
But Blake, remember,
Imagine that.
we have been to a lot of churches, and one of the things that we see common among all of them is that the men are very few,
Few and far between.
you know.
Mhm.
And my observation and my conclusion is that men are more logical. The way the church system is set up right now, it does not feed into that,
Right.
because men would want to interact.
A lot of illogicity,
Yeah.
a lot of things that are illogical
Yeah,
exist in the church.
right. But women
And you're
don't
right.
care about that.
Right.
So women would flood and flock
Mhm.
the church and have great numbers there,
Right.
which is the reality. However, when you go now, the dominant board is filled,
Yeah.
filled with men.
Yeah.
So some people might look at that as a bad thing, and it is not,
What's that?
because around the dominant board, there's religious conversation,
Mhm.
political conversation,
Mhm.
social conversation, and depending on the persons there, of course, is a teaching moment.
Not
a
only
learning
that,
moment for some.
to be a good domino player, it demands a certain kind of logic.
Okay,
You have
right,
to tell yourself, if this card was played and that one wasn't played and
right,
he passed and so on,
Right.
then this into that goes that. Therefore, so
So
you're right.
men indulge in logical
Yeah,
concepts.
yeah.
Women don't. So
Why not?
that's why you could see that when we go to these churches, you hardly find men
Yeah,
there.
less than 10%.
The
sometimes.
men who are there are normally engaged in activities like playing in the band,
Mm-hmm.
controlling the projector,
Yeah.
doing something.
Right.
So you would hardly find men just sitting down as
Regular members.
members in the congregation.
Yeah.
So while it look maybe bad or weird, I understand it, because the way the church system is set up
Right.
is not set up based on the biblical teachings, which the Messiah himself is always interacting with those he speaks to. And a lot of people might be latching on to the epistles that Paul wrote and the other guys wrote.
Mm.
But remember, those are epistles that they wrote in answering questions that people ask them. So they want interaction. Is not a interaction.
In the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just a letter
Yeah.
written from Paul to the Corinth and different things and so
One
on.
directional. Yeah.
But when the Messiah himself was preaching, reasoning, it was always interactive.
Mm-hmm.
But the church have not adopted
Well,
that.
he himself says, "Come, let us reason together."
Let's reason together.
Yeah.
But so no, right now he just preach to you, you take it how you want it, and you could go home vexed, but you dare not have any conversation with who is preaching at the pulpit.
But I want to remind the audience as well, that in terms of convincing them that religious people are not good people, necessarily good people.
Right.
Many, if not all of the world's leaders, heads of government, and heads of state and heads of government, are religious people, you know?
Yeah.
And who are more brutal and corrupt than some of them, and a lot of them.
Yeah.
Idiot Amin of Uganda was a devout Anglican.
Okay.
I mean, who was more? Some even say he was a cannibal. Who was more vicious? Two of you don't want black people.
Right.
That Idiot Amin.
Right.
Osama bin Laden was a devout Muslim.
Mm.
The Ayatollah Khomeini, look how many thousands of Iranians they killed the other day. This is before the war started. Who were demonstrating and saying they need more freedom, and women are not supposed to have to be obliged to wear this burqa and all of that. These are religious people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very religious people.
So you see, there's a
So
reason.
I want to understand that. I want people to understand that. A lot of religious people are very brutal.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to use.
There's religion, and then there's true religion.
Mm.
And this is why I ask about intelligence, because true religion must follow the order of the book. So, like for
On which
instance,
religion is based.
exactly,
Mm.
because I I I have the Quran. I read some of the Quran,
Yes, all right.
and when you read the Quran, oftentimes it is not the practice that the Muslim practice.
Definitely not.
The same thing, but the Bible is far worse,
Yeah.
right? Where you have the Bible, and them who call themselves Christians
Mhm.
go totally opposite
Against the Bible.
to the Bible. So you find with the true religion now, it's like if I'm doing accounts and there's a textbook, everything in the exam and the things that we do surrounding the textbook, we go according to the textbook, else you fail,
Right.
right? You might even get out the class if you continue to do so.
Mhm.
So how is it that people are so comfortable doing things opposite to the Bible and don't consider that they are failing themselves?
But I don't understand it. But like I said, it's just so amazing. It is simply so amazing.
Because
to me.
doesn't it take at least a little bit of intelligence to understand that if the Bible says don't eat swine, it means don't eat swine?
Exactly.
And if so,
But no, they're finding ways
to kind
to
of,
cleanse it.
yeah.
You know, and say, look, eat as much swine as you wish.
Yeah, just pray for it.
Eat as much swine as chicken.
Yeah,
Eat as much swine as beef.
right.
When to me, between me and you, it makes so much sense that the Almighty Creator who made all the animals, He decided eat these and don't eat these. I can't say anything wrong with that.
Not only that,
That's simple.
he-
That's
the
simple
fact that-
and
the
logical
fact-
to me.
The fact that
He decided.
he's the creator.
Yeah.
So he should know what better for us.
Precisely the point.
But we decide we know better for
We
ourselves.
know better. Not only that, in deciding that we're saying we know better
Better
than
than
him.
God. No. It's funny, but it's dangerous. And it's very dangerous because this is what is being fed to the offsprings, those who now are going to replace us in the future. So which means we kind of have no hope when it comes to this whole
Yeah.
religious
So
thing.
it would seem.
Yeah, because if you're already preparing the youths and them in this wrong direction, and that's why I said there's religion and then there's true religion. True religion, in my opinion, is once you're following the book, once and the fact that we go to school should have already prepared us that when you're dealing with the Bible, understand it's almost like a textbook you deal with in school. If you don't read the book and you don't follow the rules of the book, you're more than likely going to fail the exam.
And this is why it's happening. This is why so many so-called Christians are failing.
Right. So
Yeah.
so
They're not reading and studying and
they're not
understanding
reading the book.
same book.
And when they do read the book, if there's something that seem to go against what they do, they got to ask somebody questions, and they come up with some way to figure out, well, maybe you could do it still, because this and that. Like for instance, the dress code. The book tell them just modestly.
Yeah.
Why would be guy in church and seeing women
Breast out the door.
panty spring and breast
Breast
out
out
half
the
out
door.
the door, and in there gyrating to the music and
Walking
all
up.
that. Where's the
I don't-
modesty in that? Is that's the new form of being mad?
Spaghetti strap blouses. I mean, so
Yeah.
all the marks and bumps and
Right.
lumps and tattoos are exposed.
And then they go ahead and give it a kind of name now, because that's you young enough yourself.
But the Bible also speaks about the criteria for a man to be head of a church or bishop.
Yeah.
How many of these men, well, one is supposed to be married to one wife. Married to one wife.
Not a striker, not a drinker. Not a. Matter of fact, I wonder how many of them took the oath
Yeah.
to say, well, I'm not a striker, I'm not a
No,
drinker, I have one wife.
There's no oath. There's no oath.
My children are, honorable, and these things, because all that is in the
Right there.
layout.
It's right
Yeah,
there.
in the layout to say this is how you select your leader.
Criteria.
Yeah, the criteria is right there. But yet there's no matter of fact, it's easier for them. Like some person A might have a church there, and they just hand it over to their son.
Yeah, like a dynasty.
Yeah. So
Yeah, like kings and
right,
queens.
so
Yeah.
it's no longer about the principle and
Yeah.
the criteria that you just highlight there. It's no longer about no criteria. It's about let's just hand it over to such and such.
Yeah.
And so the religion,
So religion therefore is false. As practice.
and that's why you hear me say last week, it is very it has not done well for us as a people.
Listen, look at these religious people. How many of them are forgiving, are compassionate? How many of them are productive? How many of them are industrious? How many of them are honest? I mean, take the civil service in particular, because but you have it in the private sector too. How many of them are kind and polite to people, whether they call by phone or physically in person at the office? How many of them are rude and disrespectful and impatient?
And most of them are Christians.
And they're Christian.
Yeah.
They're Christians, quote unquote, of course. They're in church every Sunday. They would have just come from church the day before. No wonder Joseph Dial sang, some people go to church on a Sunday, they stand up and they shout. But when they go to work on a Monday, they leave their Savior out.
Okay.
He's right. And these are religious people.
Yeah.
They're in the choir, they're the song leaders, they're the Sunday school teachers and superintendents. Hey, God.
Yeah.
Remember, listening audience, we're trying to show you here that being religious is no indication that that the religious people are righteous or spiritual, or that they are in touch and in tune with the Almighty Creator. And you see it all the time. And this is why I am not one of those to readily listen to, pay attention to, or heed what a lot of these people say. In fact, I'll tell you this as well. When I go to certain churches, if I see certain people get up on the platform to say deliver the so-called message, I'm walking out, including some pastors. There's some pastors I refuse to listen to. I mean, when a fellow is going to tell you he can't get the pastor of his wife's church to stay out of his wife's panty, and the pastor is married, but that's a religious man. Yeah. And that particular pastor is holding a very high position in the public service. Anyway,
but you see, the pastor and the politician, so very similar.
You see,
you know,
right? That's because religion was designed to serve man's ambition,
right?
Man's ambition, man's purpose, not that of Almighty God. But there's a fundamental difference between adopting a religion and following the Almighty God.
So
it serves human ambition,
yeah.
And that is why they're in touch and in tune with business moguls, we said it last time, and political leaders in particular.
Yeah. So
they're hand in hand.
They're hand in hand, and they were all handed down from the colonial master.
Religion is a man-made institution.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 3/4 of the adults of the world, when we speak of being religious, we're talking about adults, because children have not yet been able to discriminate and determine in any mature way what is what. Right? They simply follow their parents. But 3/4 of the adults in the world claim to be affiliated with some kind of religion. But look at how much poverty, look at how much immorality, look at how much injustice exists in the world because of these same adults.
Yeah.
I mean, look at us here in St. Kitts. All of the leaders, the political leaders in particular, are religious people of one religion or another.
Yeah.
But look at their behavior. So, a fellow starts his career as a politician in 1910. Up to that point, he's worth maybe $50,000. But by the time he demits office in 1915, 5 years later, he has $15 million. And he's a religious man. He goes to church. He's the minister of this and minister of that. But he refuses to explain how he has arrived at $15 million after 5 years, when he went in only with 50,000. He was not even a millionaire. And even if he gave himself increases of 200%, not just 30% and 50%, he gave himself increases of 205,000%, he could not have accumulated. And if he did not spend 1 cent of it, 1 cent of his salary, he could not have accumulated $15 million after 5 years. But this is what's happening in many countries in the Caribbean, many countries around the world. In so-called democratic countries, religious leaders, and there's no accountability for that.
I remember some of those religious leaders might have more money than the politicians.
Well, that is true.
And then you remember also the congregation actually deify their religious leaders. They become gods among them. So you find some of these synagogues, churches, the pastor become like their God.
Mm.
Instead of as the book would say, Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. It's no longer that.
No.
It's other things.
They have their own gods,
Yeah.
man.
Right, so they've
Power.
created their own thing.
Money.
Yeah. But there's a script, there's a reading there in John, right?
Yes, here.
James. In James it say here, if any man among you seem to be religious and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, that man's religion is vain.
Oh, well said.
You know?
Well said. Who said that?
This is the book of James.
James.
Right? James, and it's James chapter 1, actually, verse 26.
Okay.
So here it is that, and this just go back to show that a lot of these persons, they are not reading.
The Bible.
They have let me look at some of the inventions of the religion around us. Number one, when I was a child coming up, I go to Sunday school and church and what's not. Then there's this thing where, oh, you're supposed to become a Christian, so there's this altar call.
Yeah.
So the pastor says some things and you go up and you kneel down by the altar. There's nothing in that in the Bible. There's nothing in history that shows that should be a part of the congregation.
Right.
But yet that is so. So that's one thing they have invented.
Right.
Now they have invented what you call the people who know the what they call them, the worship team.
Worship team. Mm.
And this to me is one of the silliest one of all. This is why I talk about the intelligence, because if the people up there, if the 976 people up there, if that's the worship team, then who those are in the congregation?
Yeah. The followers, the non-worshippers.
So they didn't come there to worship.
No, of course not.
So it's only those up there.
Yeah, who
that's
came
the
to worship.
That's the team.
The team. Yeah. Not the congregation.
Now
man.
where does intelligence fit in this, man?
Nine out of 100 people. They're the worshippers. So you must even go home because they're the worshippers. No, but it's a serious thing.
These are the inventions that come along today into what you call modern Christianity. And mind you, these things didn't exist when we were youths coming up, you know.
Well, they like this practice of so-called anointing with oil. When the Bible speaks of anointing with oil, only when people are sick.
Yeah.
Only when people are sick. The elders are supposed to anoint sick people with oil, pray for them. And that prayer of faith is supposed to heal the sick. We don't find that happening, but every Sunday, come up and be anointed with oil.
Or they have some churches that do that?
Regularly.
Oh, okay. Well,
Regularly.
I think I've seen that on one of them for real. But you know, they are inventing new things,
Which has nothing to do with the Bible.
and
Non-scriptural.
there's also the counterfeits that sit side the things of the Most High. Like for instance, we start the church calendar, or the Bible have a calendar, an annual calendar of feasts and different things that
Holy days.
that
that's all.
people should be paying
Absolutely.
attention to.
Yeah.
But there's also a counterfeit to every one of them.
Every one of them.
And the Christian community have taken on the counterfeits and put the things of what the Bible says must do aside and said they don't have to.
We
do.
spoke about two of them last time we were here. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about Christmas.
Right.
How we cannot be reconciled with reality.
Right.
And Easter.
And
3
Easter.
days between this and that.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it shows you that one, the reading. Well,
These are just religious things. They're not
main-
righteous, they're not spiritual.
my main thing.
Religious activity, pagan things, that's what they are.
But Blake, again, as an educator, how does intelligence fit in this? Because I have been to some of these churches that on our visits, and there are persons there who have bachelor degrees, master degrees, which would beg to want to believe that they're supposed to be
Yeah,
intelligent.
but always remember that a university degree tells you, when you study at university, it lets you know that the more you study,
Mm.
the more you just study, the more you realize not only how little you know, but the more you realize how useless it is. How useless it is. This is why in many countries and many firms and so on, experience is what matters. Experience and skill, not this paper qualification.
Right.
Because when a man you want, I can tell you, I have worked with some educated derelicts.
Mm.
Educated derelicts. I met a man who once described himself as a multi-genius.
He described himself
As a multi-genius, right? He said he's a multi-genius.
All right.
What's the matter with the town? Right? And they got, I mean, On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest of idiocy. On a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of a level of idiocy and inanity and asininity, I gave him an 11.
Okay, so he doing well up there.
Listen, how can religion fail to justify its existence when the more religious, the more symbols of religion we see, more and more pastors, more and more preaching, more and more churches, the more corrupt and immoral society becomes?
Yeah, and plus
How
also,
could they justify that?
If-
How do they reconcile that?
I don't think they're interested in doing that.
Oh, okay.
The fact that they're not even interested in the very Bible in the first place. They're not interested in the commandments. They're not interested in the feasts. They're not interested in the holy days. But guess what? My phone would ring out Happy Father's Day Sunday,
Yeah.
right? And Mother's Day. I'm not saying don't hail people, to give them whatever little vibes and so on. But if the Bible, the focus of the Bible is that the Almighty should come meet you doing His things, right? But somehow these people are more interested in doing man-made things than the things that the Almighty tells
I would
them.
like to have in this discussion, I ask him two simple questions. One, what is the scriptural basis for not observing the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Passover?
Right.
That's one. What is the scriptural support for observing Christmas?
And
Don't tell me no harm.
and Mother's Day, and Father's Day, and Halloween, and what is one in February name again?
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
No, but I want those to, because churches go out of the way to adorn themselves with light and flashing
Yeah,
this
that's
and
really
flashing
push
that.
themselves.
And for Christmas.
Yeah, let's push yourself to the
Right?
level for that.
Christmas is a big thing. Show me in the Bible. Don't tell me anything about tradition and so on. Because religion, the Christianity is supposed to be premised on the Bible.
And the Bible.
So show me from the Bible why we're not observing those two. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, any two of the feast, any two of the holy days, any two of the feasts.
Right.
And why is it we are observing Christmas? And how do we explain to me how we can have 3 days and 3 nights, which Jesus Christ said he'll be in the earth for 3 days and 3 nights, he said. But you claim and practice for year after year. He was buried on a Friday afternoon, and by Sunday morning, he had already risen, which means he could have been risen in Saturday night. So you're talking about just one night in the grave. Explain that to me. And I sit back and I listen. I'm willing to learn.
Well,
I'm willing to learn.
While these pastors can't answer you, right?
They'll get vexed.
The thing is that it's only because they're not doing the feast. Because if they were doing the feast, they would read that the feast actually showed you that time in there they had 2 Sabbaths.
Right.
Right? There was a high Sabbath and there was a regular Sabbath.
That's the 13th Sabbath.
Huh?
The 13th Sabbath?
Well, they call it the high Sabbath because once you're dealing with the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, they said thou shalt do no work.
Right.
So you should recognize that time like as a Sabbath.
Okay.
But the weekly Sabbath
Regular
come
Sabbath.
along as well.
Yeah.
So once you understand the timeline of that, you would see the 3 days.
Exactly.
but these guys are not into that, so they come with Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And there was no Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
It was evening
that
to
time
evening.
there. It was just evening to
To
evening,
evening.
and the day was the day, the morning was the morning, and so on. So,
But
the-
even if it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it would have to be all the Friday, all the Saturday, and all the Sunday.
yeah,
But they claim that by the time Mary and Martha had gotten to the tomb, early Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So we can't count Sunday in the first place. And we can't count Friday because they say that it was Friday evening after the sun had set.
Well-
Listen, I want to tell my audience, because our time is up, that the conclusion in my mind is that we forego religion and religiosity. Let us abandon religion and religiosity. And let's embrace brotherliness, fraternity, compassion, spirituality, connection with our fellow men, connection with nature and the earth, and most importantly, with the Almighty Creator, God Himself. Forget religion. Religion has not helped us, it's not helping us. Let us instead come together and adopt and practice principles of spirituality, which include brotherliness, fraternity, compassion, being good to our fellow men, treating nature and the earth the way we ought to, taking care of them, and of course establishing daily rapport with Almighty God. Hey God, you have the last word.
well, I will want to do a little reading just again to show the laziness or whatever the case may be. There was a reading in Matthew 19, start from verse 16, that a youngster, he said, Behold, and one came and said unto him, Good master, this is the youngster talking to
Jesus. Right.
What good things shall I do that I may enter into eternal life, that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into eternal life, keep the commandments.
Keep the commandments.
The youngster then didn't leave it there.
Mm.
So the youngster said to him, Which?
Which commandment?
And Jesus Christ said, Thou shalt do no murder.
Mm.
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Mm.
Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Honor thy mother and thy father. And thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. He gave him 6 commandments and tell him that those 6 can get him in.
Right.
Right? But the youngster still wasn't satisfied.
See, all these are
He said, I've been doing these.
All
What
these,
lacketh yet I? And he tell him, go sell your stuff, give it to the poor, and live this life. Come follow me.
right.
Right? Now, notice something. The commandments that he gave commandments, and one of them sum up all what you just said. Love your neighbor as yourself. And the other commandments, because these are commandments dealing with mankind, man to man.
Man to man.
And when they asked the Messiah about the greatest commandment, he didn't go to the 10 that people always talk about.
Right.
He went in the belly of the 613 and he pulled out one that says, Love God with all your substance. Love your neighbor as yourself. Mind you, you realize he didn't say keep the Sabbath?
I realize that. Loud and clear. Very important.
But there's a whole movement
I know. Which suggests, not just that, which declares.
which have that as the ultimate commandment.
And if you don't do it, you're lost.
You're lost.
But who more lost than they?
So I beg to ask you again, how does intelligence fit into this? And one of these days I want you to tell me.
Yeah,
People, it was good.
definitely. You see, that depends on your definition of intelligence. Because I have an academic definition of intelligence.
I want all of them.
You should explain
the
that.
academic,
But it's commonsensical. It's either commonsensical or nonsensical. Whether we are using that with which we are endowed to improve our lot and to follow what is written as clearly
Right.
in the Bible as command.
and it's crystal clear.
Loud and clear.
There's no, you don't have to go shuffling up pages. It's right there, crystal clear, coming from the Messiah himself. And that does not satisfy the people.
Imagine
So
that.
they invent their own things. All right, people.
Our leaders don't help at all in this respect.
Of course, they will not.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we
We'll
get
see you
chance.
next time.
Yeah, bless.
I forgot this contraption here.
Don't say it.